guys, so for this week's media demonstration video, we're going to be going back in time. We're going back to ancient Egypt. We're going to be drawing a woman named Nefertiti. She was a queen, and she was actually a queen right before King Tut came into power. So it's a long time ago. There were pyramids at that time. So that's something that I know we'll be talking about later in the week when we do this art lesson together. But I just wanted to show you this today. So first of all, we're going to be using oil pastels, and I have other oil pastels. I just wanted to show you that any brand you have, it's all good. This one is fun. I just thought I'd use it for just for a change today. Also, I've got my black Prismacolor pencil here. I've got my manual sharpener. I'm all set for that. And of course, these are my Arts Hub magnets. So guys, if you want an Arts Hub magnet, please like or share this video. I will be able to see that you've done that, and I'll be able to send you one of these magnets. So please do that. I have these magnets just for that reason. They go on the fridge, and here they kind of look like her earrings. So that's just kind of fun. That'd be quite the outfit, huh? Anyway, we're going to be working on her today, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. So it's time to get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about her skin, and we're going to talk about all of her clothing. And so some colors that were used in ancient Egypt were colors like turquoise and red and black and gold and dark blue. So we're going to be using those colors on her clothing and on her jewelry. But on her skin, you know, she was Egyptian, so she wasn't, you know, we're not going to be using the lightest color in the box here. We're going to be mixing some colors to try to come up with a skin tone that really represents who she was. So first things first, we're going to talk about her skin color. So I'll go ahead and get started now. I'll do the rest of this in time lapse. So to start her skin tone off, I'm going to start with some colors like this. Now, one thing you might want to think about doing is having some free draw paper handy, something nearby, just so you can do some color testing. So as you can see, that's a pretty peachy color, which is nice, but it's a little bit on the peachy side. This one's a little yellow, so we want to just test these out, make sure we're using the right shades and tones. And so this one's still a little bit yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pick up one of my nice sort of rich brown tones, and that's kind of a reddish brown. So somewhere in the middle of these colors is the right skin tone. So what I want to do is I want to show you. I'm going to go ahead and add this, and I'm going to add just a little of this on top of it. And that looks pretty good, but what I want to talk about here, guys, is blending. So go ahead and do some blending. Now, once you get that going and you think, well, that's good, but that's not quite right, you can add a little bit more of another color to it, blend that, see how you like it. You can also try different shades of brown. So this is a completely different shade of brown. You can see how it's a lot darker. So this is just a process, I should say, of, you know, just a little bit of experimenting. So this is actually more of the color tone that I had in mind. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I know that. I'm going to combine these two colors to create a skin tone that's roughly like that. So let's just do one more experiment here. Do a little of this on top. And then just take my finger and I'll just rub those together. That looks like the right color to me. So I like that. That's really nice. All right. So now that we've figured out what the color should be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started with the darker color first. And so we know that there's some shading on a face. So I'm going to add a little bit of shading under the eyes, along the nose. I'm going to put a little bit under the nose, a little bit under her lip. I'm going to put a little bit under her chin. You can see I'm going to do a little bit of shading inside of her ears, and I'm going to do a little bit of shading on the edge here of her face, and maybe a little bit right here. So this is just the beginning. This is not the whole thing. This is just a way to get a little bit of shading going ahead of time. And then I'm going to start adding this other color right on top of it. And so I'm not pressing super hard today. I want you to know you don't have to press really, really hard with these, or just with oil pastel in general. But when you layer colors, when you layer one color on top of another, it just turns into a really nice blended thing. So I'm rubbing, I'm going to fill this in a little bit more. The nose. So one of the reasons we have this black pencil here is because, as you can see, you start to kind of cover up some of these important parts of her face with oil pastel. And you just want to make sure that later, when the time comes, you'll be able to pull that color back out. Not the color, the line. I'm having a hard time talking today for some reason. So anyway, so you can see that this already looks pretty great. I'm going to take a little bit of another color. I wanted it to just make sure I'm not putting too much of one on there. So even though she's this lovely sort of rich, sort of beautiful brown shade, I want to add a little bit of highlight in certain places because there's still light and shadow. You know, there's still places where her cheekbones would be a little brighter because they're a little higher. Maybe the side of her neck. So just going to add a little of that. And a little on the end of her nose. And then I'm just going to put a little of this right on top of it. So it's still a little bit lighter, but it's not quite as light as the color right out of the box. As you can see, I'm sort of mixing it a little. So that looks pretty good. Now sometimes my students like to give their characters pink cheeks or something like that. I mean, if you want to add a little bit of pink to her cheeks, you're welcome to. If you want to give her a little bit of pink to her lip, you're welcome to. But I would recommend just going back over it with that sort of skin color. So that is the way her skin looks. I haven't done any rubbing yet, so I'm just going to kind of do a little of that, and then we're going to move on to time lapse. And so the rubbing is going to mix these colors together. It's going to make it look a little different. You don't have to be too careful because, like I said, we're going to go back over our lines with our black colored pencil. But what this does is it mixes the colors together, and I think it looks pretty good. So there. All right, guys, so that is my example of Nefertiti's face so far. We're going to do some more in time lapse, and but before I forget, she had nice brown eyes, so I'm going to go ahead and give her some nice rich brown eyes. And there we go. She's looking pretty good already, guys. All right, so looks good. So that's what I'd like you to try to accomplish with her skin tone. If you want to go back and add a little bit more of a shade like this and rub it in a little more, that's a good idea. You know, you're just trying to create a tone here that's natural looking, but also accurate. So anyway, I think you get the idea. I like that. That looks cool. All right, guys, we're going to do this in time lapse, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes. So this is coming along pretty good. I wanted to talk about a couple things before I forget. So these are a type of oil pastel that are made by a company called Pastels. And so I also, as you guys know, recommend Crayola. Crayola makes a gold pastel, and there are some bits of gold on this. So if you have Crayola, you can use whatever you have, but you can also, instead of, and if you don't have a gold oil pastel, maybe you have a gold Sharpie or a gold colored pencil. But if you want to do some of these little bits in gold, just find something that will work. I used this because I had it from another pack of pastels. Also, you'll notice in her skin, I realized after the fact that I needed to do some rubbing. So I got a paper towel, I ripped it into little pieces, and this will really help smooth out all of the bumpy edges of your oil pastel. So that works on all your colors, and you can see from all these little bits and pieces, they get pretty tiny sometimes, So just kind of fold it over your finger, fold it again, and you can make yourself a pretty good tool for getting into all these little nooks and crannies to get the color rubbed in. So I rubbed everything so far. What I'm going to do now is color the background. Now in this example, there's nothing in the background. During the art lesson, we might be putting pyramids in the background. We might be putting some lotus, flowers in the background, or something else, maybe a sunset or whatever. But in this example, I'm just going to show you some color, and I'm not going to do any actual drawing. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to just go right into using my black colored pencil. But just remember, this pencil is for drawing the lines right over top of the lines to make them stand out again. And this is definitely something where you want her eyes to be super bold this time, so she looks Egyptian. So you can see how much more that eye stands out than the other one. And you'll do the same thing to her eyebrow. And so don't forget to use this black pencil. But I always recommend that people use it at the very end because sometimes it smudges. So I'm going to go ahead, do some more time lapse. I'm going to work on the background, work on the black pencil, and I'll come back to say goodbye at the end. Here we go. Well guys, that's it for today. Nefertiti looks pretty great. As you can see, I just did sort of a gold, different shades of gold and yellow in the background. I did rub them in, and it's always wise to have extra paper towels handy so you can keep them clean. You may have noticed that I actually peeled the label off of this light yellow and broke it so that I could use it a little more easily. And that is something you can do sometimes if you really need your oil pastel to be clean. You can just peel that label off of it. You can break it into a piece that's easy for you to use. You don't have to break it, but I like to. As you can see, it's a lot easier to handle when it's smaller. Plus, it's nice and clean, okay? So that's just one little thing that might help you. Also, this black pencil, I know I've talked about it a bunch of times, but it just makes the biggest difference. It makes everything just really, really stand out and look good. So I hope you are using your black pencils. The black Prismacolor is the one I really recommend because it has really great lead in it. It's made with wax actually, but they call it lead. But anyway, it's got a really great quality to it. If you don't have a gold oil pastel, like I said, you could use a gold pencil or something else. Just remember, Sharpie does not go on top of oil pastel. It's going to ruin your Sharpie, so don't do that. But you can always use this black pencil on top. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Nefertiti's looking pretty great, and I look forward to seeing how yours turn out too. See you soon.